Excellent. I'd like to start. Cynthia is home still, so I'm going to run the meeting tonight, and we have Bobby Joe also. I'd like to open up the special meeting for July 6th at 7:04. Please join me with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you with that. I'd like to remind everybody, this is a special meeting. There is no public input. And we'll start. Nancy, do you have a presentation? I'm sorry. Can you unmute yourself?
So I believe that Matt sent out a memo that was kind of a recap of what the Board of Selectmen had done last night in their meeting, asking for the Board of Finance to approve an amount not to exceed the 1.4 million. So I'm hoping that you all got his memo.
Yes, we have all the backup for that. If you can just explain how we got to this point, just to bring everybody back, the regular meeting, it was like 998,000. I think there was a push to keep it under $1 million, so we didn't have to have a referendum.
That's
Now
correct.
it's 1.4. Can you just explain how we got to that point?
Right. So if you look at the budget page that Geraldine Horoff, who's our owner's rep from STV, she's on too. We had been working with an amount under $1 million, and Action Target, which is the largest component of this whole project, they were the ones that you had approved the amount for at your a couple of meetings ago, or maybe at your last meeting. And that amount, we wanted to have you approve at that point to hold it at that amount, because it was at 775. And then they saw, not in the actual Target machinery piece, but on the HVAC, the very specific HVAC piece that they need to do the air exchange, et cetera, for use while the range is firing. They saw a large increase on that HVAC equipment from their vendor. So that had to be included in that amount, which is what you approved. Board of Selectmen first approved it, and then you approved it. Marty spent some time back and forth with Action Target to ask them to, they had said that they would hold that price until mid-July. And then Marty got them to hold it till August 1st. So we had time to fit the referendum in. In the meantime, Geraldine was working with getting a professional cost estimate done, so that because we did have the schematic part of the drawings completed, so that we could get a better idea of what kind of construction costs we were looking at. And that came up in a little higher. Again, what was included with that is a larger contingency to cover possible escalation. So we strongly feel that we're not going to hit that 1.4 million, but we wanted to be safe and have, it was something that came up at not the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, but a few meetings before, of having a number we feel comfortable with. Again, we're feeling we're not going to hit that amount. We're going to be at 1.2 at most, I'm thinking. And I'm going to have Geraldine put some info in for us also at this point.
Sure. Just to sort of back up part of what Nancy was saying, we do have a committed cost from Action Target for the range equipment and the major part of the HVAC equipment. At the time that the building committee set this budget and this request, it was not yet clear that we were going to hit all the dates to be able to have the referendum in order to hit that August 1st date with the Action Target purchase order. So one of the pieces that we've included in this budget is $160,000 worth of escalation charges on the Action Target contract alone. And the reason for that is because between the time we received their first quote in April and that quote expired, so then their second confirmation of the price, the price of the HVAC system equipment increased by 15%. So in not knowing when we were actually going to sign their contract, we wanted to make sure we had a buffer in there on the action target piece. Then on the construction, we did have the architectural drawings have progressed to a point where we could provide them to a professional cost estimator for the construction piece. And even on that side of the project, the actual local construction, they encouraged us to carry not only contingency, but escalation, because the action target equipment has a 5-month lead time, which means that the earliest that this project will actually be, will actually go under construction would be in January. So we want to be sure that we capture any increases in cost between now and this January start of construction. So we have a couple of small escalation pieces in this budget. As well, it is typical when you ask a cost estimator to estimate a project that, so they're not the contractor, they're not making a commitment, and they're working on drawings that are not quite 100% complete. They will also always include a design contingency to take care of any changes in the scope as we move forward to completion of the architectural drawings. So the $1.4 million budget was built around including a number of escalation and contingency factors. And then also the building committee itself has many members on it that are currently working in the building trades, working with similar pieces of equipment. Their feeling was that we should round that number up. We were someplace like at 1.36. They said it would be prudent to round that number up to 1.4 and to cover as many possibilities as we could for cost increases between now and then. I concur with Nancy. I think that if we were building this project today, if we were starting construction today, we'd probably be about 1.25 million. But for this approval and for the town folks to approve a referendum, we wanted to have enough money in the budget so that we would not have to come back for more money or reduce any part of the project scope.
Okay, Nance, I just have one question. What was this whole thing that we went through with the target company, with Marty getting a number, and then we're still throwing 160 on that number? Their number is their number if they agree to it.
Yes, their number is their number. What we're finding now is that, so their number is their number until August 1st. The referendum has been set up as far as the process for getting to the referendum. So there'll be, the Board of Selectmen did set a date for a special town meeting. Registrar's town clerk are working on getting that all organized because we do have a state and federal primary in August. So they're kind of trying to get all that done so they don't get in each other's way. So the action target figure is the action target figure. You approved it, Board of Selectmen approved it, and then you approved it. We were being safe, extremely safe in putting an escalation figure in there. And one, like Geraldine said, several people on public site who work in the trades, and some who have found a huge increase. Like there's one member who's working towards buying HVAC equipment for the school system he works for. He saw a 15 to 20% increase in the time that they started looking at buying the equipment and when they actually could issue a purchase order, and what they ended up doing, because they know they're not going to install it immediately. They did something called pre-buying. So they went out and bought the thing. It's sitting in a yard somewhere. That way they're beating the possible cost of escalation. And there was a push on a couple members' parts as far as putting a hefty amount in. And we have to look at it from the point of view, like Geraldine said, we don't want to go back and ask for more money. And it's not like once it's approved, the town says, here's your money, spend it the best you can. Each invoice gets, finance takes care of this, but each invoice will get tracked according to the account. And if we hit, if we spend 1.23, and we're not going to spend any more. We're not going to spend the whole amount because if it's not needed, if we don't see that kind of escalation.
Well,
I think, go ahead.
just my question, we were all rushed into this room because we had to have the special meeting, which we were gonna have another meeting next week, our regular meeting, because
Right.
we're told that this referendum's gotta happen by August 1st. And we're gonna sign this contract by the morning of the 2nd, and then we bought this equipment. And I just
Yes.
have a problem with 160,000, the dollar amount on there, so we don't need to make a motion tonight. We have $160,000 worth of time to wait. Is that what you're saying?
No. So what, for the process of getting to what you would do in approving this tonight is put that amount forward to referendum. We need to have language for the ballot for the referendum. The legal notices need to be put out, et cetera. The ballots have to be printed with an amount on it prior to the referendum. And there wasn't time, if you were going to do it on the 12th, if you're going to wait till your meeting on the 12th, that would kind of back everything up as far as it's the referendum part. Our understanding that the referendum part was the need for having this special meeting tonight.
Okay, just one more question.
Sure.
If we think this is gonna come out at 1.2, 1.25, maybe 1.3, how is the town gonna get the 100,000 back?
So let me just say that if the referendum passes and a purchase order is issued in time to preserve that $840,000 cost with Action Target, internally, we will immediately revise our project budget to remove that $160,000 escalation cost on the Action Target portion. So we will be working off of a budget that is that $160,000 less. I think what Nancy was trying to get at earlier is that it's not like the town turns over to us $1.4 million. We work against that number as we are contracting with, in this case, the construction portion of the project. At some point, we will know that our total project cost is going to be the 1.25 or 1.3. We'll never see, the project will never see that other $100,000 from the town. It's just and maybe Brad can better explain this, it's an encumbered amount, but it's not really distributed to the project until invoices are approved by the building committee.
So, and again, just one more, if there's something neat, okay, they say, oh, we can get this for an extra 75,000, what stops them?
But, well, so who's they?
I don't know, the police department or the building committee, if there's something that says, hey, you know what, we got 1.4, we only did 1.3, let's buy a better door or something. What,
Nick,
No,
no. Hello,
oh,
go ahead,
and-
Cynthia.
may I? I understand exactly. This is the way most projects work, is the invoices are submitted, they're approved. I really don't think that if it passes a referendum that says an amount not greater than 1.4 million, that if there's any less spent, that they can use it for something else. I think it's specifically for this project, the things listed on this paper, right? They can't just say, we want strobe lights now.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true, Cynthia. That's very true. It's something that I explained during our last Public Site and Building Commission meeting too, where a couple of members said, oh, if we don't spend all the money, we just give it back to the town. It's not, so the amount for this was, I believe if Matt's memo does mention it, to come from the fund balance. And all projects work this way. So it's not like, $5 million is approved to do whatever, and somebody's given $5 million or given a checkbook with $5 million in it. The money stays where it is. The money stays in the fund balance. The money stays wherever it happens to be. Like if it's a capital non-recurring project, the money stays there until invoices are approved, and then finance pays the invoice. The invoice is approved by the Public Site and Building Commission. I sign it saying that, yes, we approved it. I attach our minutes. It goes to finance. It gets through finance. When they send a check out to XYZ construction company, the finance keeps a spreadsheet internally for each project, tracking all the expenses. and then we would track them also. So the police department or the Public Site and Building Commission or anybody else couldn't go to finance and say, oh, here's an invoice for whatever you said, doors or something, or strobe lights or whatever. Can you pay this? Because it's got to go through the process. And we would not obviously approve something that wasn't part of the scope of the original project.
Bob, do you want to add something?
I not add necessarily, maybe just to confirm my understanding of it. I think to Nick's first question, what is the control of putting 1.4 aside and then having that money go somewhere else? Well, I think the control is, as Nancy's described it, we're not going to raise 1.4. We're going to just
Ability
Pay-
to spend it.
right, pay as it goes. Then I think the next question, and I think Nancy, what you're saying along with Geraldine is Nick's example of maybe purchasing something out of scope. Right? Let's assume everything goes really well, we come in under budget, and then there's this thought of, well, we have a little bit more money, we might want to do something that's a little bit out of scope. I think what you're telling us is you, Nancy, with Geraldine and the rest of the building and site committee are going to say that's outside the initial scope. Therefore, you don't have our approval to go forward to do it, nor go to finance that finance it.
I
Is
think
that
I just said that, actually.
Yes, yes,
right? Okay.
And-
yeah, pretty much what Cynthia said, yeah.
And Nancy, you've been on the permanent building for a while. And again, I just have a strange memory, but when you guys were building that police department, Lieutenant's here, he could probably speak of this. The whole design was the design, okay? And it got scaled down because the referendum failed, but then there was some brick in an entranceway that was added for 50,000 that wasn't in the scope. So how did that 50,000 get in there? And
So there-
Lieutenant, maybe you can add, do you remember when you added that fake brick? It must be where you guys are going in.
No, not to the range.
Not the range, no, when the police department was built, it was as clapboard, and the conversation you and I had was, it was ugly building and you added the brick.
Yeah,
And
no,
you were
that's-
part of the building
yeah, no,
committee, so
that's-
how did that get put in?
No, what happened was the building was initially supposed to be a full brick building.
And it got scaled down,
Right. And so we value engineered it down, putting the hardy board on it. But in some places, we kept the thin brick, which is not the full brick.
and if you remember,
That
Nancy,
was
that
part
there
of
was,
the value engineering to reduce the scale of the project because we didn't have enough money.
but you guys voted at a permanent building committee that to add the 50,000 to pay for that brick.
Right, so initially it all got taken out, all the brick, we
Mhm.
value engineered it down.
Right.
And then we put some thin brick back in, yes. once the
Exactly.
renderings were up.
Nancy, do you remember
But
that?
the building committee voted on it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She's saying you guys can't vote on a building committee to add something that wasn't on there.
So, yes, that you're right, the building committee cannot,
Thank you for saying I'm right. I'm not lying to anybody, right? Okay, good.
Well,
No,
it's
it's
just-
just, when it's, no, sorry, go ahead.
so as Lieutenant Durkin was saying, there were changes that we made throughout as we value engineered to get the price within the cost that was approved at referendum. There were several things that were removed, some things that were engineered, as you say, downward cost-wise. And then we found there were certain things that, and I don't have all that information in front of me, so I can't say exactly, we went up a little, we went down a little. So there were places, as Lieutenant Durkin said, that we, rather than installing the hardy plank clapboard, we stayed with the thin brick, which is a kind of siding. It's not whole brick, but it's a thin brick used as a siding. And there were some areas where we kept that, and voted to add it back in. It's not that we spent more money or it was within the scope. So that was still within the scope of the project. If you're looking at something that's within the scope of the project, again, we would definitely look at cost, et cetera, as we did with that and several other things with the main building. But we wouldn't add things in just because we have a little extra money or we think it would look
Nick.
nicer.
Nick,
Yes, Cynthia.
I think you have to look at this a little differently than the police station, only because here there is a project manager, whereas there was no formal oversight of one, like a clerk of the works or something with the police station. There just wasn't. And there was a lot of things that happened during that construction. I do remember actually the thing with the thin brick, because I went to a lot of those meetings. And there was a lot of, devalue, is that what you call it? Or how do you call it? What do you say?
Value engineering.
Value engineering to make it work. And what would have to happen, Nick, is they would have to approve. They would have to approve whatever change. And in my opinion, it sounds like they worked it all out. I mean, are we in discussion phase? We haven't made a motion really, right?
No, there was a presentation. You're right.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But we'll keep going. It's a special meeting. Dan, did you have anything to add?
No,
Perfectly clear.
okay.
Well, I have discussion points. I don't know if we're going to make a motion and discuss. I don't know. What
I
you're
just had
doing.
another, Nancy, Gerald, thank you for confirming my understanding. I guess I want to just kind of peel it a little bit more. The firing range equipment and the dedicated HVAC system, right, where we have action target quotes, those are locked in prices, assuming we get back before August, get back to them prior to August 1st. Is that right?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, and I believe the way we're trying to set this up is to have a referendum no later than July 29th, so we should be good there. Is that?
That's correct.
That's
Yeah. My understanding is there's discussion in getting that referendum in that last week of July, like earlier than the 29th.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So that's about 820,000 of the 1.4. It's
Yes.
about 58.5% of the total. When I subtract that from the 1.4, it leaves about 579. Let's just call it 580. And there seems to be about 191 of contingencies or escalation put against that 580.
Mhm.
That's about 33%. I don't know
Yes.
anything about this. It seems high, but tell me why that's appropriate.
Geraldine, you want to?
It is high. It's definitely high. But again, the 160, we would take right off the top, because if we can lock in their purchase order before August 1st, that number definitely goes away. Then as soon as we can bid the construction portion, probably sometime in September, we're hopeful. Then we can lock in the construction cost side of it. Again, we're working with someone's cost estimate. The cost estimator did go back to some of the original contractors. They did some due diligence on how the space was left, what still needs to be done. But again, we need contingency and escalation costs until we can lock that portion of the contract in. Then we would again revise our budget and just carry, the typical 5% contingency to cover unforeseen things that happen during construction, problems with walls that we open up, something that is specified by the architects but doesn't quite fit, and we have to adjust for those imperfections in the drawings. As I said earlier, if the project were going ahead immediately, we would certainly not have all of the escalation and contingencies. We would be showing a small construction contingency carried by the contractor. We would be showing an owner's contingency to cover any unforeseen difficulties. Probably between those two, it would not equal 10% of the total budget. But because of the point that we're at in the project and the need to go to referendum and get a budget approved, we're adding all these contingencies. And just honestly, in today's marketplace, we are still in a very uncertain place as to delays due to materials not being able to be obtained on time or any labor shortages. This is a small construction project. I don't know that we will have difficulty, but it's certainly going to attract smaller subcontractors, and all of those things add cost to the project. We just want to make sure we're covered in terms of a budget. Honestly, after the action target contract is set, I'd be willing to come. Definitely, we will publish a new budget and come back to you and present where it's at. That will make that commitment on the record in terms of costs. And then again, once the construction contract is signed, we would go back on the record. We certainly will be going on the record with the Public Site and Building Commission you know, just to put out transparently where we think the costs are going to be at that point as we lock in some of the future costs.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you. So,
Excellent. Yes, Rich.
As an ex
Yep.
official, Matt's not here. The number of 1.4 is not to exceed, and it's similar to the school project. The school project, I'm going to say is 65 million. They've spent 54 million. The money is on expenditure, so the town doesn't have to lay it out. So it'd be the same thing with this, but they're looking at enough.
It's a line of credit, but we're not going to spend it.
Correct.
Right. Okay, great. Bobby Joe, you can hear us. Do you have anything to add? You're all good? Is that bubble gum or no? Cynthia, any other?
Again, if we're ending presentation and you're gonna make a motion.
We'd
I
be
do
glad
have
to hear, we would glad to accept the
discussion
motion.
points. Well, let's make the motion to approve it so that we can get a discussion part. If that, okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept, fill in the number, Mary,
Not to exceed 1.4.
right, for the firing range.
Mary, is that enough information? Yeah. Do I have a
Any
second?
second? Bobby Joe,
Oh, Bobby Joe, you got beat by Bob Manfreda.
or you can just say Bob.
Yeah.
all right, we don't say Manfred anymore.
All right. Is there any other discussion now on that motion?
Yes.
Cynthia, do you have something to add to discussion?
I actually do. So, you know, I'm all for the firing range. Here's what bothers me, and it's just something that's been bothering me lately because we have a lot of stuff going on now, projects. We just found out the school is $700,000 short of what they thought they had for, you know, repairing the HVAC over there at the high school. We have ARPA funds that are being, it hasn't been voted on yet, but I mean, we just have all this money floating around. And what bothers me is now, this time now, when you say the prices are escalating, the supply chain is messed up. It's like we're following through with the project because it's been talked about for years, you know, I know that. But it seems like we're buying high and we're buying at a high price, and also without, you know, it's almost like we have to rush so that we pay the high price so we don't pay the higher price, but yet it almost makes it seem like we think prices will never go down. But I'm just nervous about that, that's all. And I'm nervous about once you put this out to referendum, if it fails, then it's going to be difficult to resurrect it. So, you know, I think that's really just that's really all I would say. It just makes me nervous. And Nick, you know what we talked about with the park and the general fund and, you know, leftover money from the high school. It's like, where's it all? There's just a lot going on right now. And I appreciate all the work you put into it. Honestly, Geraldine, I think you were a great idea to do that, to do this pre-work. So that's all I have to say. I just, you know, I feel nervous about it for that reason.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Not that I don't approve of it. I do approve of it.
Is there anything else, Dan? Bob? No? Everybody good? Do we have a motion and we have a second in discussion? No other discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Everybody raise their hand if they're good. Let the record show we're unanimous. Okay, so congratulations, Bob. There's no other business on the special meetings agenda. I would accept the motion to adjourn. So I have a second. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Everyone. Good night now.
Yep, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.